Settings are very important in LaserBoy. When LaserBoy does something, when you tap a key, it does some incremental thing. The degree of that increment, whatever it is probably going to be something in the settings. It has to do with the way things get optimized. It has to do with the way things move and scale and rotate. All of those things are all settings in the settings menus. And in the distribution folder, you see this the WTF folder. If you go in there, you see there is a CTN WTF file, which that has to do with making files for those little SD card readers that you put into the little inexpensive laser projectors. Anyway, when you run LaserBoy for the very first time, and here we're running it at 1440 by 1080, comes up and see, it just created this file here, laserboy.wtf. That is the default settings file. Every single time LaserBoy starts up, it looks for this file. And if the file doesn't exist, it creates the file and saves it. And it'll save it with all of the default settings that are compiled into the actual code that makes LaserBoy. If it does exist, it will load whatever settings are stored in this file into the current running version of LaserBoy. So the first thing you might notice is we ran this at 1440 by 1080, so that's a pretty good size area here. And this font is kind of small for this size of an area. So we go in. All of the value set, well, not all of them, most of the value settings that are commonly used are in the tab menu. You hit the tab key and you go into this menu here. All of these are like numerical values settings. One of them is N, which is the menu font size factor. So we hit, it's currently 1, so we hit N and we'll say 2, and now the font is twice as high and twice as wide. So it's much easier to read on this screen. So when we go to leave this settings menu, LaserBoy knows that we changed something, and it asks if we want to save it to the default settings file, and we tap the Y key and it saved it. So now I can close LaserBoy and open it again, and it remembers my settings. Also, if you have a project that you're working on and it has a particular set of values that you want to use in your settings that might be, different from the defaults for whatever reason. Maybe you're using a different kind of DAC that has a different clock rate or whatever it might be. You can change your settings however you like. I'm going to go ahead and change this to something so that you can see it. Okay, so I just made the background dark red. And it's asking me, I tried to exit out of here, and it says, do you want to save this? I'm going to say no, because I'll hit any key other than the Y key, because I don't want to save that into the default file. But let's say I do want to save it as my own project file, so I can go O to output, I can go 7 for .wtf, and we'll just call it James, and there. And you can see here, it just made this file, right? So now this file contains whatever changes I might have made to the settings, right? And once LaserBoy is up and running, well, here, I'll show you. We'll close LaserBoy. Okay. Open it again, and it comes up this way because it read laserboy.wtf. Now I to import a file, 7 for a type WTF, James, and there I got all of my settings back. So that's basically how you deal with settings and saving them from one session to another, is they're saved in these files here. And so let's go ahead and get this back to where it was. Okay, so there's value settings in the menu that you get when you hit the tab key from the main menu. If you hit the X key from the main menu, these are all settings which are either on or off settings, okay? And then there's also the visual attributes settings, like you can turn the vertices on and off, or the blanking path on and off, or whatever these things do for you. All of these things and several others, like there's a whole bunch of settings that have to do with the way WAV files are managed. All of these things, including like the background bitmap image, if you happen to load one in order to trace over something, whatever, all of that stuff is in the settings file, and you can either save it to the default, which is laserboy.wtf, and it'll load it every single time you run LaserBoy, or you can save it to your own named WTF file and then load it after the application has already started.